Welcome to the channel. My name is Javon, and if you joined this video hoping that you can find out how I took my score from the lower 600s to the upper 700s, if you're curious about the patterns and the habits that I utilize in my daily life that constantly increases my credit score until it gets to that next level, and if you're curious about all the things that I try to avoid that ends up decreasing your credit score in a dramatic way, then this is the video for you. I have plenty of good content coming your way, and if you get to the end and if you like what you hear, then do me a favor, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way into helping grow this channel so that way I can make you and me the best versions that we can be. Now, before we get into all of that, if you're new to the channel, welcome. And if you're old to the channel, welcome back. This is the place where I talk about real estate, I talk about investing, I talk about finances, and I talk about everything that it takes to make your life into a better life. Now, I'm new in a whole bunch of these areas. I'm a complete beginner. I follow a lot of people on YouTube that talk about what success looks like, but their perspective is what success looks like from the top. I wanted to make this channel to show everyone what success would look like from the bottom. We're building up from the ground up, and I'm starting right here, right along with all the rest of you guys. So if you're new to this channel, this is where I'm coming from, and I appreciate you coming along with me. Now that all that stuff is out of the way, we are going to dive into how exactly and when exactly did I get started on building my credit score and starting my credit journey. Now, I'm currently 24 years old now, but I started my credit journey when I was 20 years old, a sophomore going into my junior year of college. And I started at that age because I realized some things. I realized that later on in life, I would like to get a house, I would like to get a car, I would like to maybe get an apartment or rent a place to stay in without the need for someone else co-signing for me. And all of those things require that I had good credit, and good credit is one of those things that takes time to build. I mean, at the time, I didn't even know what my credit score was. So I figured while I was young, while I was dedicated, while I had energy, and while I was still in college and I had the time to dedicate to increase my credit score and learn everything that went into it, that was the perfect time for me to do it. And that has worked out so well for me. All the things that I have done since then, like getting my own car, getting my own place, all those things have been heavily dependent upon my credit score, which has turned from very low to very high. So starting that early was a huge motivation for me to keep going. Enough talk, let's dive into the details. How did I get started on my credit score journey? The first thing that I did, the very first thing, was I logged into Credit Karma and I created an account. When I was 20, I realized that when I wanted to start my credit score journey and raise my credit score, I actually had no idea what my credit score was. So I figured that the first thing I could do was actually find that detail out. I heard a lot of people say that there were some sites online at the time that were risky or they weren't really trustworthy, but Credit Karma had really good reviews at the time. I knew that I didn't have to put in any credit card information or anything like that. I just gave them some information about me and they would pull out whatever results were out there based upon me. So I entered in my information, I filled out every form that they sent me, and boom. Just like that, I was able to see my credit score. And my credit score initially was, I believe it was 638. And this was back in June of, this is 2020 now, so it was, when was this back in? This was back in, 1 hour later. June 2016. This was back in June of 2016 is when I started this journey. Sorry that it took me so long to find that piece of information. So I started with a score of 638 and I created my account on Credit Karma. The next thing I did was I ordered a credit card from Credit Karma. This was huge. Credit Karma allowed me to find out which cards I would be best in applying for. The very first card I applied for was the very first card I got. It was a Chase card, and that came with a credit limit of $500. Now, there were some things that I implemented in my life to make increasing my credit score easier. So the very first thing that I did was I decided that I would never utilize more than 20% of my credit card limit. So with a $500 limit, 20% of that is going to be around, I would say $100 if the math is right. So I never went over $100 on my credit card, the very first credit card that I got. And the second rule that I implemented in my life was I assigned a purpose to that credit card that I got. So with my Chase card, I only use that for groceries. Now this is huge. So many people get a credit card and they just go wild. They're like, ooh, free money. Me, I know that that money is based on everything that I had in my checkings or savings. If I didn't have it in my checkings or savings, I didn't have it on the credit card. Luckily for me, I could afford groceries on my credit card, and groceries weren't that expensive because I was in college. So following those two rules, 2 months later in August, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August. Yeah, August. I saw an increase in my credit score from 638 to 719. This was huge. The increase was more than 60 points, you guys, just by following those two rules. So from there on, building up my credit score became like a game to me. Now, I've had some dips and I've had some really successful wins as well. And the one thing that I learned along this whole journey is be consistent. That's it. Don't go crazy. Don't go wild. Be consistent and follow practical guidelines. Now I'm going to give you some tools that I use, some tips that I follow that helped increase my credit score until what it is today. Today I'm sitting around in the high 700s, so like 770, 780, depends on what it is on a good day, really. But today I'm sitting around one of those scores, but it took me almost 2 years to even get up to the 780s. And from there I dip and I recline. It's like a nice little flow. So it took a while to get to that point. And then it took consistency to get to that point. And it took also following certain rules and staying away from certain activities. All of that I'm going to share with you next. I'm about to hand you guys the 7 keys that I use to increase my credit score to what it is now. Now, I don't say all of this lightly. This is some real good advice, real good things to know. Coming from a beginner and being where I am at now, I still follow these rules, these keys, till this day. And you guys, that's exactly what I call them, keys, because that's exactly what they are. These are something that's going to be used to unlock paths in your life that you couldn't be able to do without. So key number 1 is always pay off your credit card in full at the end of each month. Now it sounds really simple, but there are some people who carry balances on their credit card. And let me tell you why that's dangerous. Credit card interest rates and limits, ridiculously high. They're one of the highest things that you can have as far as the interest rate in this world. I personally hate the credit card interest rates limits, but you know, the only time they don't come into play is when I never have to rely on them. And the only time I don't have to rely on them is when they don't accumulate. If you pay off your credit card in full at the end of each month, every month, you're never going to accumulate interest rates, so you never have to worry about the interest rates. However, if you do choose to carry a balance on your credit card month to month, that high interest is going to accumulate real fast, real soon. And you guys, I don't want you to get swallowed up by that. So always pay off your credit card in full by the end of each month. Rule number 2, never go over 20% of your credit card limit. Now this is a soft rule, but it's a hard guideline. And what I mean by that is it okay to go over 20% of your credit card utilization? Yes. Is it okay to make that a habit? No. Credit cards usually like it better, credit card company bureaus usually like it better if you stay under 20% utilization of your credit card. So if you get a credit card with a limit of $1,000 a month, please try not to go over $200 a month on that credit card unless you have to. And if you have to, make sure you can still follow rule number 1, meaning at the end of that month, you will be able to pay off that credit card. So number 2, don't go over 20% interest. Rule number 3, and this one was a huge impact on my life. I use this now and I use this back then as well. I assign a purpose to my credit card. Now I mentioned this before earlier in the video, and what I mean by that is with each credit card I have, and I have about like 5 right now. You don't have to have 5. I am just a little overzealous. With each credit card that I have, I assign a purpose to it. So some credit cards I use purely for groceries. Some credit cards I use purely for phone bills. Some credit cards I use purely for utilities like electricity or water or heat or anything like that. Assign a purpose to your credit card. And when you do that, it makes it easier to keep track on how much you're spending on each credit card because you know exactly what that credit card is for. And it also helps you see what exactly you're spending each month on a certain subject. So for my credit card for groceries, since I'm only spending groceries on this credit card, I can look at it at any moment and see, is this too much to be spending on groceries? Or, oh, I'm actually doing really good this month. So assign a purpose to your credit card spending, and it's gonna make your life a little easier. Now these next 4 rules, I'm going to toss at you all at once and then I'll explain as I go on. So the next 4 is let the hard inquiries on your credit card history slowly disappear. Diversify your credit score. Let your credit age, and always, always, always stay consistent. Now, what do I mean by those 4 things? All right. So letting the hard inquiries on your credit card disappear. Whenever some company checks out your credit report, what happens is that checking of your credit report, that's called a hard inquiry. Now, it's okay to collect a couple of these. It's expected throughout life. When you apply for a mortgage or you apply for a car note or somebody checks out your credit report for some financial reason, that is expected to happen. What is bad is when that happens in an excessive amount, right? So at this very exact moment, I have about 3 inquiries on my credit report. But if it was 10, that would drop my score a lot. So let hard inquiries disappear from your credit report. It usually takes them 2 years to disappear. So try to stat them, know exactly when one is going to fall off so you can apply for another line of credit for something different if you know that you have to. So let those disappear in a timely fashion. The next thing that you want to do is diversify your credit. I have credit in a whole bunch of different fields of life, and this is going to come as you increase what you're doing. So I have a credit report in a mortgage on my house. I have a credit report on my car note. I have a credit report by the credit cards that I have. I had a couple of student loans. So my credit history is very diverse. I borrow in a whole bunch of different areas, and what that shows credit report companies or people who are lending out money is that since I have all these different areas in my life that I'm borrowing credit from, and I keep up with each and every single one of them, that means I'm a reliable, trustworthy credit person. So they are more free to give me more money. And that also increases my score. So I get 2 benefits from that. I can possibly get a bigger loan, and my credit score also goes up as confidence in me goes up. So diversify your credit. It helps out tremendously. The next thing you want to worry about is let your credit age. And what that means is don't cancel your credit cards unless you absolutely have to. Now, there's a difference between paying off an account. Let's say you are about to pay off your car note. You have finished making monthly payments on your car. Paying off an account, that's cool. Same thing with student loans. It's okay to pay off an account because that doesn't make that account disappear. But when you cancel a credit card, essentially you're saying wipe this from my history, and the amount of time that you've had that credit card, that's a positive in your credit score life. So my very first credit card that I got back in 2016, and it's 2020 now, if I was to cancel that, that would reduce my credit age, which is not really good for your score. You want to keep your credit age as long as possible. And the reason you want to do that is just because it shows that you've had credit for a long time. That must mean that you're experienced. That's what a lot of credit people like to think. The last thing is very simple. You stay consistent. If you stay consistent with the rules, the keys that I gave you, then I promise you're going to see results in the long run. So that last part was very, very useful in how to increase your credit score. But this next part is just as useful. We're just going to run through it a little bit more quickly because you have everything you need to get started. So I gave you 7 keys to increase your credit score. These are the 7 keys that you need to decrease your credit score, which I don't know why you would want to do this, but just in case, it's very simple. All of the keys I just gave you, do the opposite. If you want to decrease your credit score, then carry a balance on your credit cards month to month. Constantly go over your credit utilization by 20 to 30%. Constantly go over it. Actually max out your credit card limits. Make sure you never assign a purpose to your credit cards so you never know what credit card is being used for what. Constantly acquiring new inquiries on your credit report score. Never letting your credit card age. Never staying consistent and not diversifying your credit score. I promise you, if you do all of those things, then your credit card scores will decrease. I don't want that, and I'm telling you now because I'm assuming you don't want that as well. So make sure you're paying attention to those things. If you find that you're doing one or all of those things, then now would be a good time to stop, think, reanalyze, and make a plan going forward so that way you can live your life the best way. that was everything I had to give you. Hopefully you guys learned a lot. Hopefully you took down some notes, and I'm praying that my advice is going to help you go out and reach your best credit score. Now, I want to end this video with a personal story just so that way we can get to know each other a little bit better. Right now, my credit score is doing amazing, but I didn't start from a high credit score, and my journey to get into where I'm at now has not always been a straight point. I didn't go from here and go straight up to here just in a straight line. It was more of an up and down, and one of those up and down moments is going to be the one that I tell you about today. So when I graduated from college, it was 2018, and I just got my bachelor's in computer science. I was super excited. I was super stoked. I got my job offer. I was ready to start work immediately. Actually, I was working before I even crossed the stage. So I had everything set in line, and I wanted a laptop. You guys, I saw a laptop. It was new, it was shiny, it was perfect in my head because I'm a computer science geek. So it would work perfectly for home and perfectly for work. So I could rationalize getting it in my head. Getting it wasn't the problem. The problem was the laptop cost a lot of money, and I got it on a credit card that did not have a high credit card limit. Or at least I forgot the limit on the credit card. I thought it was higher than it was. So I got the laptop on the credit card, and I was like, okay, cool, I'll just pay this credit card back off because I'm working now and I can afford it. And then my credit score dropped like 50, 60 points, and I was hurt. Not gonna lie, my feelings was hurt a little bit, and I couldn't figure out what happened until I went to go check Credit Karma, and Credit Karma told me that I overutilized by more than my limit on one of my credit cards. And I was like, that doesn't make sense. I would never do that. Come to find out, I miscalculated what my limit was. I went way over it on my credit card, and it dropped me by more than 50 points. That was a huge, devastating moment, and it took me several months of working my butt off to make up for that lack of judgment, lack of clarity. But I made it past it. And I say all that to say that your credit journey is probably not going to be smooth sailing. I hope it is. I pray it is. I'm counting on it is, because you're probably smarter than I. My credit journey wasn't smooth sailing, and sometimes yours might not be either. So if you ever get to a point where you're doing really well and then you make a mistake and it seems like all your success is just thrown out the window, my advice to you is to keep going, keep thriving, keep being the better you that I know you can be, and stay accountable. Now, if you like this video, if you love the content that I share with you guys, then please hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. I'm a beginner, and I am so excited to share everything I can with you, and hopefully we can all grow together. Peace, love, and abundance.